Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to do a little bit of barbecue science, and we're going to do a comparison between the Kamado soapstone surface and the cast iron surface. So the cast iron, I've had it for a while, but the soapstone is a new addition to it, so I thought it'd be good to do a comparison. I've always loved cooking on cast iron. I've really enjoyed cooking on the soapstone recently, so it'd be nice to see what the finish is like on both of them. So you might have noticed a couple of nice ribeye steaks sitting here. I nipped over to Hillsound Farm Shop, grabbed a couple of their ribeyes, got them to cut them decently thick. I didn't want them so thick that we would have to do like a reverse sear on them, but I also didn't want them so thin that we were going to be on there for a few seconds. So these are about inch and a half thick. We're going to season them up. We're going to aim to get them on at the same time. We're going to flip them at the same time. We're going to try and cook them to the same temperature. And really the comparison is going to be what kind of a finish we get on the outside of them, what kind of crust it builds up. Now, whilst we are doing science, it's never going to be an exact science. There will be slight differences between the two steaks, or two different steaks. They're never going to be like perfect lab conditions, but I think we can get pretty close. Before we actually get them seasoned up, we're using the Steakhouse Gaucho from Smoky Carter. One of my favourite rubs of theirs. I use it all the time. This is quite a coarse rub, and since we're going onto a surface here to try and get a finish, I don't want some of these larger bits burning whenever they hit that really hot surface. So we're actually going to stick it into a little grinder and grind it down into a finer consistency, so we still get the flavours, but we're not getting those larger pieces. So I'll try and do this without spilling too much of it. Yeah, that should be enough. We'll give the steaks a quick little drizzle of olive oil. Nice amount of fat in these. Should be pretty tasty. We'll give this a little grind over. Flip those over, do the other side. So we'll let them chill out for a little bit while I talk about the surfaces. So I think most of us have heard of cast iron, usually in the form of a skillet. So a lot of us are used to cooking in skillets. But the cast iron surface from Kamado then is just a flat griddle. So it's flat on one side. If you flip it over, then you have those ridges if you want to get the nice kind of grill marks on it. To be honest, I tend to always cook on the flat side. It's just out of habit. I don't know why I always choose to do it. Using that gridded side would be perfect for steaks, but we're going flat today for an even comparison with the soapstone. The soapstone is something I've had a few questions about since I've been cooking on it more recently. The soapstone is a thick piece of non-porous stone, so it is polished almost like marble. It's nice and smooth on the surface of it. It is non-porous, so any of your oils or fats, grease and stuff isn't going to soak into the stone and soak it. If you think of something like your heat deflector in your Kamado, that is porous, so if you get a lot of fat onto that, it soaks into it. And you'll know if you've ever lit your barbecue and put a greasy deflector in there, the smoke that comes off it's crazy. You don't get any of that with the soapstone. So whilst it might look a little bit dirty and grubby, that's all on the surface. None of that is actually soaked into the stone itself. Now the benefit of that big heavy piece of stone is that it heats a lot more evenly than cast iron would. Cast iron maybe get a few hot spots here and there. Also, if you put cold food onto cast iron, it can kind of shock it and take a lot of the temperature out of it as well, whereas you don't get as much of that with the soapstone. So that's why I'm interested to see if we get a more even sear on the soapstone than we do on the cast iron. So we'll move across, we'll see what temperature our stones are sitting at, and we'll get the steaks on to cook. So I think once we get them on, I'm going to leave them for 3 minutes on each side, just to try and get that initial crust, and then after that we'll flip them every 1 minute from there until they hit our desired temperature. Let's have a look and see what the barbecue's doing. Okay, so soapstone on the right hand side, cast iron on the left. If you hit them with the laser, so soapstone's reading 250-ish right in the center here, and our cast iron is reading just under 300. This has been in for twice as long as this has. So this is heated up a lot faster and a lot hotter. The soapstone has kind of come up and it's kind of rested off around that 250. So this takes a lot longer to get going. I am going to hit both of them just with the tiniest little touch of oil. Give that a brush around. And same with the cast iron. Okay, so my stopwatch ready to go. We'll go on first with soapstone, and then on with our cast iron. A little press on just to make sure we're getting good contact with the surface, and start our timer for 3 minutes. Okay, our first 3 minutes are just about up. Stop that. We'll flip this one first since it went on first. Nice even colour. Over with the cast iron. few more black spots in the cast iron, but still a lovely colour on it. We'll start our timer again, give them 3 minutes on this side, then we'll check our temperature. Okay, second batch, 3 minutes is up. We'll give them a probe. Thermopen, setting about 60 on the cast iron one, so I'm going to take it off. I don't want to give it any more time. Nice colour on both sides. Yeah, it's hitting 60 right in the centre there, so I think I'll maybe take it off too. Right, I'll cover them up, let them rest. Then we'll slice them up and see how we've done. Okay, so these have had about 8 to 10 minutes resting time. Both rest on the exact same plate and the exact same circumstances, so straight off the bat, and it was actually a little bit of a surprise for me. Cast iron has a darker colour to it, so a better kind of darker crust to it, which the Soapstone's missing, and I'm kind of surprised by that. But Soapstone maybe a little bit more even, but definitely not as good a colour. Cast iron is darker, and this is the second side. Not quite as good as the first, so obviously a lot of that heat once we flipped it over. The underside isn't done as well, so it got a really good sear on the top, but the bottom didn't get quite as much just because that cast iron probably dropped a little bit of temperature. Over here, similar story to the Soapstone, although maybe not quite as dramatic. Let's do a little bit of a cut through and we'll have a look and see what they're like on the inside. Both of them are pretty similar as far as doneness is concerned, and also if we kind of look, they kind of have a little thin grey line at the bottom of the Soapstone one, and then again at the top. Cast iron is similar, although that hotter side does have a slightly thicker grey line than the underside, whereas it is much more even on the Soapstone. Again, the Soapstone was cooler, so it isn't going to cook quite as ferociously as the cast iron would, but it kind of held the heat more evenly on both sides. And now, as with any good science experiment, we finish with steak, so I'm going to cut a little strip of our cast iron one, and same again with our Soapstone one. We'll go cast iron first. Have to do a taste test. That is some nice rich fat. We haven't overpowered it with the rub either. There's little hints of it come through, but that's pure beef. The fat from the steak coats the mouth so nicely. Let's go Soapstone one now. Okay, we do have a winner, and I'll be honest, it's not what I thought it was going to be. Although the cast iron might not be quite as even, the crust that it has on the outside is better than the Soapstone. So Soapstone doesn't have quite as much colour, but it is more even. Cast iron has given it a better colour, and the difference in top to bottom after searing isn't that dramatic, but it is there. So I'm guessing we can maybe have got around that by searing it on one side of the cast iron and then moving it to a different part of the cast iron griddle that hasn't really had all that heat sapped out of it. But I thought it was a good experiment worth doing. I have been asked plenty if there's a difference between the two. Now I can kind of definitively say there is. It's maybe not as dramatic as I thought it would be, but it is definitely, for a steak, cast iron works perfectly. I'm still going to cook them with Soapstone, still love it. So let me know if you have tried either of these surfaces to cook on, which one you prefer or what you think each one of them is good for. Always interested to gather that kind of stuff down in the comments, because it means everybody can go down, have a read through, they get different ideas they maybe hadn't thought of, or maybe ideas that I hadn't thought of. So leave your 2 cents worth down, I was going to say downstairs, but down in the comments. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. It's hard life being a scientist, and I have to go and eat these 2 steaks.